Welcome to everyone who's joined us for this session, and it's as I was just saying, the fourth day of our event, and it's the first session we are kicking off this Thursday, but there is more to come this afternoon and tomorrow, so if you haven't checked out the rest of the agenda, do have a look after this session. But for today, we're going to be talking about how to boost your creativity and generate more original ideas, which I'm sure is something we can all benefit from in some way. So this will be a 45-minute session. We're going to be chatting through our ideas for about half an hour of that, and then we're going to save around 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. So if you do think of any questions as we're going through or at the end, you can put them in our question box as normal on the screen, and we'll come through those at the end. This session is also being recorded, so if you do have to drop off or you want to revisit any of our tips and advice that we're going to be sharing, you will get that on email later today, so you can look out for that in your inbox. But without further ado, let's do some proper introductions. So you're probably sick of me saying this if you have been on quite a few of our sessions, but I'm Naomi, the Content Marketing Manager here at Sparkle, and I am one of the panelists actually on today's session to mix it up a bit, not just the host. And I am very excited to be joined by Ash, who is not only my colleague in the marketing team, but she is head of our marketing department here at Sparkle. And I know she has really practiced putting creativity to the test to come up with obviously new campaigns for our own work, as well as new ideas to help improve Sparkle, our products, our business as a whole. So I'm excited for her to join us today and share some of her insights too. But I'll let Ash just say hi quickly.
Mate, I think you did the intro for me completely. I'm really excited to be on this call today. Thank you so much for inviting me along. I think everyone who's tuned in, I hope that you leave today with some new ideas on new ways to be creative, as particularly we're coming up with 6 ways that we use creativity or try to encourage our creative thinking. So fingers crossed that it's a good one for you.
I'm sure it will be. So to kick off, we kind of wanted to discuss what actually is creativity, because I'm sure everyone has a different kind of definition of what it is, and it's sort of constantly evolving as well, particularly with the pressures of the last year has forced us to potentially reevaluate how we're working and change how we're being creative. So the dictionary definition of creativity is the use of imagination or original ideas to create something. In summary, inventiveness. And I think although this definition is super broad, we tend to think of creativity in terms of artistic skills, musical ability, things like that, really defined skills, and not really appreciating that creativity comes into everything that we do. It could be new ideas for how you're working, new ideas for things you can do at the weekends. It literally applies to anything and everything, and I know we've been putting that more to the test in recent times. I know, Ash, you can kind of chat about this more.
Oh, 100%. I think inventiveness is the key there. For us here in the UK particularly, we've been in what feels like a year-long lockdown, and creativity has been stretched to the limit to try and find new ways to stay excited with our weekends, rather than just staying in the apartment or your home watching the same Netflix series that I've seen already 4 times. But I think outside of just day-to-day living and creativity, what we're seeing on a global scale is brands really embracing what the pandemic has brought, outside of all the sadness, but new ways to communicate with their prospective customers or their current client base. And what we wanted to show you today was an example by Uber, where they have really taken on what COVID has meant for individuals and their clients that would typically order an Uber to get home, an Uber to go to a restaurant, wherever you're getting an Uber, with the key message of staying at home. It's obviously contradictory because Uber's model is all about getting people around using their taxi service. So if we could, Naomi, could we press play and then we can discuss the key takeaways of this particular ad? And it's a really good way that they've taken not their footage, and obviously people have contributed to this ad. We can see people cooking. There's one scene where they've transformed their staircase into a slippery slide. People are exercising in their living rooms. Mate, I've tried to do that, but it's not my thing. Lots of people skating inside, eating different things, but also that emotional connection with family where we can't be together in the same room. We might be connecting virtually or through glass windows or doors. So Uber have really taken on the pandemic and made it work for them in this advert, because it's not directly targeting or promoting rather their service. And I think this is a nice way to showcase creativity that may not necessarily be about promoting their business, but just a positive message for us all.
Definitely, I think it's such a nice example, isn't it? And just showcases, yeah, all those different ways we're adapting, maybe without even realizing it's creativity at work. So now we've sort of defined creativity in this modern, very weird world that we're in. It's time to look at how we can boost our creativity. And we've got 6 different tips that we're going to share with you today. And these are things that we practice ourselves. So we've kind of tried and tested these for you. And I'm sure some of them will be familiar, but others, hopefully there are some new ways of looking at things that you can take away. And for all of these, we've kind of taken the thought process that the British psychologist Graham Wallace has developed, which basically says that all thought is sort of based on 4 steps. And he discovered this by studying how innovators and thought leaders were coming up with ideas through the earlier parts of the 20th century. So the first step is actually all about preparing yourself to come up with great ideas, which you might not think is a step in itself, but you're probably doing it without realizing. And Ash has a couple of tips on this that we'll get onto very shortly. The second is all about incubation. So not just thinking, okay, I've got an idea immediately and it's ready to go. It's buying yourself a bit of time for it to be mulled over. The next is illumination, where that idea actually starts to form and it's coming together as a fully fledged thing of its own. And then we move through to verification, which is getting that sort of the buy-in from the people around you, sharing the ideas, getting them to refine it further and really solidify it as your final idea. So you'll see this sort of comes through in parts of our presentation today. But going back to that first step of preparation, what's your kind of advice for this stage, Ash?
Well, I think the screen says it all. It's what are other people doing? So ordinarily, when we were office-based, we would be bouncing ideas off one another freely. But in this world that we're now currently living through, a lot of us, particularly in our business here at Sparkle, are remote working. So we have to think of new ways of discovering or having the inspiration going through this preparation phase, like you mentioned, Naomi. So one of my key tips, like I said, is what are other people doing? You can find inspiration, or I find inspiration in seeing what industry mailers are sending out. So the example here by Campaign, I've subscribed to their database and I receive my weekly mailers from them. And within it, it's just a snapshot of what's happening in the industry. Creatively through marketing and through advertising. It's a great way for us to be abreast of what type of ads people are putting out. Are they using human actors? Because we know that's in relatively short supply depending on where you are in the world. Are they using animation? We've actually seen quite a significant increase in animated related ads. What are the messages that people are trying to convey as well? Because by subscribing to these types of mailers, you get all the insight behind it. So why has a brand decided to go down this route? What were they trying to achieve in this particular ad? Has it come through? What was the agency that they worked with? And what's the general feel? It's that kind of insight that I really appreciate and which helps me in my preparation phase trying to find inspiration. Of course, looking at what your competitors are doing is a big one because it helps you realize whether or not you're missing something or if you're actually on something good yourself. And so you may see that your competitors take it up and start doing their own variants of it. So just keeping an eye on what they're doing, but also just generally, again, seeing what's going on in the market. Like Uber, they've done a promotion that isn't specific to their business. It's just a general nice message for us. Is that something that our business could be doing as well? And then my final place that is a nice hub for inspiration is not just specifically TikTok, which I have referenced here, but just social media generally. But to go to TikTok specifically, man, I could tell you I have seen thousands and thousands of hilarious, brilliant videos coming through from TikTok because of the pandemic. We have so much more free time when we're not out and about dining in restaurants, and we're seeing creativity come to life. And it's not just people dancing or creating recipes using roasted tomatoes and feta with some pasta. It's also interesting that teachers are taking on TikTok. And I think one particular TikTok by a teacher that has stuck out to me is when he's showing a science experiment with a Ziploc bag, some water and some pencils, and he's stabbing the Ziploc bag with the pencils, and the students are going crazy. Have you seen that one, Naomi?
I have. I'm sure some other people today probably have as well, because it was been super popular.
Very popular, very viral. But I think that is just encompassing the brilliance of creativity. It is just a lesson, but he's showing it to the world, and it's a nice way for other teachers to see what he's doing, ways to engage their students, striking up that inspiration to go with this preparation phase of the creative thinking journey.
Perfect. I think this actually ties really nicely with what one of our guest speakers was saying yesterday, Christian Weaver, who has the Law in 60 Seconds channel, and he was saying part of his creative process for developing his videos is actually looking at what's topical, what people are talking about, because if you can tap into those as well, your video is more likely to be shared, talked about, and be more successful overall. So it's almost like a dual benefit of going through this stage. So definitely a great first tip. To move through to the next point, which was all about incubation, I think, again, this has been a bit of a theme of the week for us, letting your ideas mull over and be sort of percolating in the back of your brain. This was something that was really flagged in our storyboarding panel discussion on Monday. I think we all often have an unrealistic expectation of ourselves that we can just sit down and create a fully fledged maybe storyboard or plan for a video or fully fledged idea in one sitting, and it's just not really how our brains work. We need time to absorb the ideas, connect them to things we already know. I've included this quote from Einstein on the screen because I think he describes it perfectly, that it's basically the subconscious and conscious sides of our brains pulling the information together, probably while we're doing something completely random like the washing up or going to see a relative or something. It's those points where you're not focused on that task that your brain can do some important linking in the background. So I think for us, this point is just about taking your time, being patient with yourself, and carving out that thinking space, and not expecting yourself to come and sit and do something in one go. I think I always find, particularly, I write a lot of our content, and it's the same for that. So I'll get an outline of a blog done where I know the immediate ideas I want to include, and then the bits that I'm not sure about, I'll probably go away, do something else, and come back to it. And then it's so much easier to fill in those gaps because you've had the time to think about where you want it to go. So where possible, essentially make the time and give yourself that breathing room, because it's going to improve your overall result. And I know something that goes along well with that is one of your tips, Ash.
That's right. It is, as you can see on the screen again, change up your environment or your situation. Now, to the point that you've just made, Naomi, about you might be out and about seeing your relative, or you might be doing the washing up. Oh, I'm done with the washing up. But you're right. By changing up your situation or your environment, it does encourage creative thinking. And I hate to say it, but Stanford University have proven this. The creative output and thinking increases on average by 60% when people are out and about or when they're walking. And it makes sense. I can tell you there's been so many times when I've been going for a walk, or I hate to say it again, trying to work out, where these brain thoughts have popped in, these ideas where I might have been stuck on something before, but by giving my time the chance to get away, giving myself, the time to get away from my usual desk situation, which happens to be my living / kitchen / dining area, and giving it a fresh change of scenery, my brain's able to explore new thoughts or expand on other ideas that might have been in the back of my mind, not necessarily in the forefront, and develop it further to become something that is worthwhile.
Definitely. I think we were even chatting about this the other week, saying the difference between sitting down and standing up. And I think even those small changes, just the little bit of movement that it forces your body to take, can make a difference. I decided to create my own standing desk from a very not a very elaborate situation, literally a cardboard box on my kitchen table. But I did find that it did make me a bit more productive, and it helped me just get thinking about new ideas. So something to try maybe if you're not already this afternoon as a quick test. So moving on to our next tip. So this is a slightly different point, but just I think really important to highlight. I came across a TED talk that basically explained how we're playing by a certain set of rules that aren't actually necessarily real. So you might find that you come up with an idea or a solution to something, but you tell yourself that will never work. But it's like, why won't that work? Is it because you're confined by rules that you don't even realize you've developed over time as we're aging and developing different life experiences? We tend to apply these rules that aren't even real. So I wanted to show the part of the TED Talk that explained this perfectly because I think it is a really important message. So I switched to that.
I've seen this TED Talk. It's a crazy one. You just go, oh, of course, but it's always easier, isn't it, after the fact?
Definitely, that's exactly it.
But why is this something we have to relearn? Why don't I talk about learning creativity? And I'll give you a very, very simple example. It might be a bit caricated, but some of you, or most of you, have probably seen this before. It's called the 9-dot puzzle. The challenge is link all the 9 dots using 4 straight lines or fewer without lifting the pen and without tracing the same line more than once. So I'll give you 15 seconds. Normally it's 10 minutes. The embarrassing thing is kids have no problem with this. Kids do this right away. And I'll start by showing you why it's so hard for adults to solve this. So if you look at the person trying to solve this on paper, this will be the solving strategy. Or will it? Let's see. Oh, yeah. So you start in one corner, you go to another corner, and you'll continue doing that until you realize I'm almost out of lines, and then you'll cross 45 degrees and realizing you're all out and you still hasn't gone through all the 9 dots. And the creative solution to this, the adult solution, is that you have to realize that you don't have to stop in a dot. And by realizing this, you can actually solve it. So the reason why this is a puzzle is because we put rules into it that are not there. The only person who told you that the line should connect 2 dots and stop there is some teacher in math, in a math class back in the days. But this still sticks. So the adult solution, the adult creative solution is like this. And I normally use this to warm up when I work with kids. And I remember the first time I did it, one of the pupils in the class, about 6-year-old, when seeing this, he said, well, I can solve it with 3 straight lines. And, you know, adult, arrogant me would be like, oh, you're so cute. Yeah, come on and show me. And he did this. And it's a completely fine solution. I've also seen kids folding the paper around, so you can sort of do it with 1 straight line, just going around the paper in circles, which is also still fine. But in this same class, another pupil said, well, I can actually solve it with 1 straight line. And I had already been shocked once, so I was, okay, maybe you can. He walked onto the, and he did this. And it's still a completely fine solution. It's just embarrassing that we didn't think about it.
So I think that example just perfectly illustrates those subconscious rules that we've for some reason taken on and we can't shake. But yeah, that TED Talk is fantastic. If you do get a chance to watch it, we've got the speaker's name on screen there if you wanted to check it out, because he has loads more insights like that. But obviously this is a super simple example of a puzzle, but I think it often applies to real world situations that we're probably facing, just thinking immediately something can't work because of some historic reason that we've developed, when actually we think, is that true? And if you start to question those things, you can probably break them down a bit more and come up with some new ideas. So something to think about for sure. So moving forward, I know, Ash, you've got another tip that can really help us with that verification and illumination step.
Yeah, and this is about vetting whatever you're thinking with a trusted friend or a colleague. I think if you were exploring a concept by yourself, you might be, in the example that we just watched with Boulder, you might be limited to the dots. But if you vet it with a friend or with a colleague and you explore your idea and develop it further, you could come up with a solution where it's one circular line around a folded piece of paper. By having somebody that you can trust, you're able to bounce it off and develop it into something that could have started out small and become something that's even bigger. So, for example, we do it all the time, don't we, Naomi? We bounce ideas off each other. I trust you. You're a great sounding board for what is good and what is bad. And I think that's the key point, is by doing it with someone you trust, you can be honest and explore alternatives that you might not have thought of within your own self, but then hopefully make it into something that's bigger and better. It's a key thing though, because if you're not trusting the person that you do it with, you could find yourself getting offended, which isn't obviously what we want, because at the end of the day, it's all about finding success. And by having this relationship with somebody, you just develop your creativity, develop your ideas into something that could be more impactful for your business, rather than taking ownership solely on yourself. Because at the end of the day as well, you can share that success with the person that you're working with, which I think is one of the best things, is having that joint celebration when something is good and when you are loving it and you're, yeah, that was a great idea. Look, it's killing it.
Definitely. I think, as you said, having that open mind is super important going into that, because you want to see the challenges as constructive. It's not that it's a critique on your character or your ideas. It is just challenging your thought processes to understand what's going on and where could be improved or changed. So definitely is something, as you said, we do all the time, and I find it super helpful to make our ideas the best they can be. Mm-hmm. So one thing additionally to kind of keep that creativity flowing once you're in the creative space is to flex creativity like a muscle. It's not something that will diminish. It's something, the more you work on it, the more ideas will come. I'm sure you found this with even lockdown hobbies like cooking or any crafting you're doing. The more you do it, the better you're becoming and the more ideas are flowing. And I think Maya Angelou said, you can't use creativity up, the more you use, the more you have. And I think that is super true. And some quick ideas that we've been testing to come up with more ideas quickly are these two. So the first thing is to think about 10 impossible ideas. So these could be things to do with your life goals that you think, oh, I'm never going to achieve that. It could be business ideas that you are interested in, but again, you're not sure how they would actually work out. Or it could be global problems if you want to tackle something pretty meaty this afternoon and look at how you would approach the COVID crisis or something like that. You can basically plan out those 10 impossible ideas and come up with solutions to them. They can be completely hypothetical, as out there and crazy as you want them to be, but it's just about tapping into those almost childlike parts of your brain where anything is possible and you can do anything, because I'm sure in those you will find glimpses of reality and things that maybe can apply to what you're doing currently. The second exercise that is also fun to do is to think of all the incorrect answers to a question. So again, this is just tapping into exploring ideas. They don't have to be right, they don't have to be correct or make sense in the real world. They can be purely based on your imagination. I don't know if you've seen any of the threads on Twitter where someone asks a question like, what should go in a cup of tea? And they ask for wrong answers only, and some of the answers on those are just amazing, like pure genius, random off the wall ideas that you think, how did they even come up with that? And obviously it helps that they're funny along the way, but your ideas don't have to be funny. It is just about exploring and having fun with it. So if you have a spare 5 minutes this afternoon, it's just a great exercise to flex that creative muscle and get those cogs whirring. So those were our 6 main tips, but we know that obviously there are tools and softwares and things like that that can help you in your ideation journey, from the kind of first step right through to the end verification step. And we've kind of picked out a few of our favorites that we use all the time. And most importantly, they are, I think, all free. So anyone on any budget can use them, which is super important. So yeah, we will get into those. Ash, do you want to talk us through your favorites for preparation?
Yeah, thanks, Nay. So preparation is all about finding that inspiration If you can do it while you're out for a walk, fantastic. So let's say you are going for a walk, the sun is shining, you're having a lovely blue day here in the UK or wherever you are in the world, take a podcast with you. I find when I'm going for my walks and I'm listening to these podcasts, it doesn't matter if it's related to your industry or just generically, I'm mentally inserting myself into these situations, and it's encouraging me to think of or dream up my own stories in my mind, which I may not be doing ordinarily when I'm behind my laptop trying to get my work done. So doing this will encourage your preparation stage, get your inspiration flowing, those cogs working. And another one, like I mentioned before, was subscribing to different types of mailers. So that could be your competitors, that could be industry news, it could be your coffee supplier. Just have a look at what they're doing within their comms, the types of tone of voice they're using, how they communicate with their customers, what their subject line looks like, also their branding. What does it look like? What type of imagery are they using? Do they use people? What types of photos do they look like? What are their colors? What's their brand color palette? Is it complementary to you? Do you think it clashes? Are they challenging the norm? How creative have they been? Do you like it? Don't you like it? Just consider all these types of questions, and they can spark off new ideas within yourself. By having those points down in your preparation phase, those tools are free. You can subscribe for free to pretty much most mailers that exist in the world. Podcasts, oh, there's stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of freebies out there.
Have you got just any favorites on that? Any favorite mailers or podcasts that you're addicted to?
Oh, there's this one called Snap Judgment. It's a podcast, and it's all about these crazy stories. So the host is this charismatic. He's got such an iconic voice. I couldn't even explain it to you other than like jump in, have a listen. But every podcast is completely different. One week he had this guy on who was in a bat cave, and there was this whole thing about bats taking over his life. And then the next episode was about a guy who basically traveled from the UK to Sydney, I think it was, or definitely Australia, in a box. He got himself into a freight box because he found it was the cheapest way to travel. And he just spoke about his experience of being in this tiny box crate the entire journey. And you've got to remember, like, those getting in the like freight part of a plane, it's cold. It's just kooky little situations like that. But already I'm picturing this guy in this tiny little box sitting there. How does he eat? Does he eat? How does he use facilities? I'm sure he doesn't. He's locked himself in a box. So what's he doing in there? It just encourages out of the box thinking, if I may say. And then subscriptions to mailers. One of them that I love here in the UK, but I'm sure you can subscribe worldwide, is Campaigns Live. So that's just a summary of obviously campaigns, what brands are doing, the types of ads that they're putting out. And like I said before, has really nice write-ups of the goals that they were trying to achieve with those adverts. Obviously gives you the advert itself, and then the takeaways from the business and any success that they are seeing.
Nice. Some great examples there that I'm sure people can check out afterwards. So once you've done your preparation and you've got a whole bank of inspiration, the second step we know is all about incubation, letting those ideas marinate or marinade, keep not remembering which one is which. But yeah, so it's giving them time to percolate in your head. So some tools we love for this, the first being Trello. You might have used this before in your business or organization if you've got sort of a team license, but essentially it allows you to create separate boards of ideas, and within those boards you can have different cards that you can attach different ideas and inspiration to. So if you think, oh, I've seen an awesome campaign in this mailer, you could attach the inspiration to that idea and then start moving it through your ideation process, building on it as you go. And that's also great for getting to the verification stage, because you can get team licenses. So if you wanted to say to your team, hey, check out these ideas, let me know what you think, you've got the perfect place for sort of collaborating on those points. The next is Notes/Notion. So this is pretty straightforward. It's literally just getting those thoughts out in their rawest form so that you can then iterate and build on them. You can use the Notes app if you've got a iPhone or an Apple device. I find those are really helpful. There's also a checklist app for Windows, which I've heard is really good if you are interested in using that. And there's also an app called Notion, which I'm sure lots of you are familiar with. It's very hot right now. It's very popular, and that's again just a really extended to-do list software that helps you get your ideas out, build on them, attach anything you want, and sort of help move you through that process so that you're not going to forget any of these great ideas and wake up in the night and think, what was that point I had that it was such a great idea? You've got them all there to come back to. And obviously there's good old-fashioned pen and paper. Sometimes the physical act of writing something out actually can spark new ideas, I found. But yeah, so a few options depending on your preference. Moving through to the illumination stage, Ash, I think this speaks for itself, if you can talk us through.
Yeah, so you've got your inspo from your podcast, or maybe some mailers, or a combo of both. You've got your pad and pen or your notes app. But if you're getting outside, get some fresh air in. I'm not the one who said it, it was Stanford. Stanford proved that we are 60% more likely to see an increase in creativity when we're out and about walking. So if you are walking and you've got your phone with you, Notes, if you're an Apple user or an Android equivalent, is perfect. You're mulling it over. If you do need to revisit revisit your thoughts, you've got them in your hand or you've got them available to you. Get them working, get it firing through for you to get into that verification phase and start bringing it to life. What tools would you recommend for the verification phase, Naomi?
So obviously this is all about solidifying your ideas, getting any of that final input from people you trust and people you've got a good relationship with, and also starting to share your ideas. So the first tool we have on here is our video tool Scribely and also Video Scribe. So again, there are free versions of both. So if you don't have a paid subscription, you can still get on and have a play. But I think this has also been raised in some of the sessions this week, that using, say, Video Scribe to just flesh out your idea so you can share it with others is a great way to start getting that feedback and start getting the buy-in for your idea. So you can make a quick explainer scribe saying, okay, this is our current challenge, this is how we're going to solve it. You're starting to really present those ideas to other people. So a great option there. We also have templates within both of those tools. So again, if you are at the point where you're thinking, okay, I've got an idea, but I just need that final push to help me bring it to life, we've got some inspiration in there that you can adapt our pre-made video templates to make them your own. It just takes a little bit of that pressure off when you're coming into a tool and you've got that blank screen phobia that I'm sure we all know well when you're just starting out, bringing your vision to life and you think, actually, I'm not sure where I'm going with this. So it just helps you with some of those starting blocks. And as I said, they're all free as well to get started with. A couple of other tools that are slightly more specific, but one is the HubSpot title generator. So HubSpot, the marketing platform, they have a dedicated title generator that I personally use a lot for blogs, content, anything that I want to make it sound compelling. So it could be a title for your video, it could literally be anything, but they help you craft those super catchy and really clickable sound bites. So, you know, the top secrets to XYZ, all those things that you just can't, they're irresistible to us. I mean, I find
click.
Yeah, you see that come through in your inbox and you're like, I'm gonna have to know what that's about.
Exactly.
So all of those bits, which I think you can use in a whole load of ways, you can just Google that and you'll find it. Also for color palettes, which is super important for videos once you've got your idea and you want it to come across persuasively or you want people to feel a certain way about it, color can play a super important role in changing people's emotions. So make sure you've got that kind of nailed, and a great tool to find a suitable cohesive color palette that goes together is tools like mycolor.space. So you can check that out. You just use one color that you already like and it kind of builds your palette around that. So another great tool to check out. But yeah, so that is a roundup of our favorite tools and our tips. We hope that you found some of those useful, and maybe we'll experiment with a couple of the exercises that we've shared today this afternoon. But yeah, that was our main tips. We now have time for Q&A. So if you haven't already put your questions in for us, you can add them into the box now and let us know, have you tried any of these things? What will you be trying after this? And what questions do you have? Thank you to Asha, just saying that you found it really useful. So awesome to hear. While we are I can see some people typing, so while we're getting into that, we'll just discuss, I think, some more of our favorite resources. So obviously you said about the podcast of the man in the box, which definitely would get the imagination going. But some bits that I love are the How It's Built podcast. I think that's what it's called, where it talks about how different businesses are started and the kind of process in that. So if you're intrigued by that or want to see how some of these entrepreneurs get started, because often they have very interesting founding stories, then those are great things to check out. There's also a podcast called How to Fail, which is basically about people's literal journeys to failure, which might not sound that inspiring, but actually you can learn a lot from the mistakes they've made. So it's super interesting. But yeah, just a couple of mine to throw into the mix.
Love it. I find when, particularly at Sparkle, because we are a video-centric company, whether that's through our products or through the services that we offer, I'm trying my best to stay as creative as possible. Now, whether that is within my own production with Scribely or Video Scribe, or by chatting to our studio team who do the custom videos for our clients, it is crazy what you can unlock when you just think a little bit differently. So I remember when I started at Sparkle and I'd used VideoScribe for the first time, and I was looking at it and my mind was just like in a box. Okay, this is a whiteboard animation software. Everything must animate with a hand and must look illustrative. And the reality is, when you take a step back, it's so much more than that. With the fade features, with the move in, you can make it look as though you are literally an animator in your own right without having the years of experience with university or at college. And I think that's the kind of the key of unlocking creativity, is that out of the box thinking that helps you really maximize your usage of any product, not just Scribely or VideoScribe, even Photoshop, again, another creative product. But there's loads out there that really, if you do get those fundamentals and you're taking a step away, thinking of new ways to flash text up or transition cool images in, cut different shapes in, adding on gradients, you can create these incredible scenes and experiences for your viewers.
Definitely. I mean, I think we said earlier in the week, but some of the VideoScribe videos we see on social and across different channels, we can't even tell that it's made by VideoScribe until they actually tag us and say we made this with VideoScribe, because you can just create such unique look and feel videos. And as you said, by using all those different bits of functionality, you can create something that looks completely different. It doesn't have to look like a whiteboard animation. It can look however you want it to. And I think for any of you who joined our session yesterday with Carol Alaloof from Exaltus, we had a lot of comments saying that her style of presentation didn't look like VideoScribe at all. It looked completely different, and that just shows what you can do with custom illustrations and putting your own spin on things. So yeah, so many ideas out there. We've had a note from Steve saying he's looking forward to using HubSpot immediately. So that is awesome. Definitely, we love HubSpot just because we use it all the time ourselves. But that tool is definitely a great one to check out if you are wanting to write anything vaguely persuasive, from videos to any marketing material.
I think that's it. It's not just about like a physical asset. Like you said at the start, Naomi, I think creativity generally gets put into this pigeonhole of art or video or something that's physical, but it can be something intangible or tangible, of course. It is literally that creativity is the wittiness of a subject line, or the effectiveness, or how many clicks you can get through it, or the use of different colors. So, you know, you may not think that pink and red are meant to go hand in hand together, but then we're seeing it's coming into like these trends and fashion, and all of a sudden it's the new thing. Pink is the new orange, which was the new black, which is the new going through there.
Definitely. So we've had a question from John saying, I know you can create your own assets using Inkscape, etc., but can you import assets from elsewhere, like Envato and Elements? So yes, anything that's an image file, or if you wanted to upload music or voiceover, you can import into VideoScribe. So yeah, you would just go to open an image, to open the image library, and then there's a little button in the bottom left-hand corner that you can use to upload any image files that you want, and then they're in there. And don't forget, you can also upload GIFs, short GIFs, so that can also put an extra spin on your videos. If you wanted any more moving elements like that, you can always chop your video files down into little GIFs to include, because we do that in some of our promotional bits too. Okay, John has understood, that's perfect. I'm just checking through any more comments. But I think as we are getting to the hour, we will wrap up so that you can get on to your next call or meeting, whatever you're heading on to after this. But thank you so much for joining us for this session where we've been discussing all of our creative hacks and ways that we come up with new ideas. We hope you found them useful and will take some away to experiment with. If you have any extra questions for us or about VideoScribe or Scribely or any of our products or services, you can contact us at marketing@sparkle.com. Just drop us an email and we will get back to you. We will be sending out the recording of this later today, as we said, but other than that, we hope to see you on another session either later today or tomorrow. But yeah, thank you to Ash for joining me as well to share your tips, and yeah, have a great rest of the day wherever you are, and we will see you soon.
Thanks for having me.